Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for your patience, and apologies for the delayed start. So today we are joined by Bhaja Govindam Prabhuji, who started his spiritual journey led him to Krishna consciousness movement during a work project in the USA, where he took a liking to the temple deities, spiritual association, and the Bhakti Yoga philosophy, which answered many of his unorthodox questions. His main service is to spread the mission and present the Bhakti Yoga practice in an insightful, practical, and applicable way. He has recently given a class on the Gita through the School of Bhakti and contributes enormously towards making available the courses run by the School of Bhakti. Bhaja Govindam Prabhuji graduated in Natural Sciences degree from Cambridge University and is working as a solutions architect in the corporate world of IT. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hare Krishna, thank you for having me. So nice. So is that over to me, or is that?
Over to you.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. I'll start with prayers. That's okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadameyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sakhana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadhavetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamascha He Krishna Kurana Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrijabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhischa kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha namo vishnupadaya krishnaprishtaya bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, thank you for having me. Thank you everybody for joining. I do like my audience to have their cameras on, so please do turn your cameras on if you can. Thank you for those who have joined, also for those additions that I've sent invites to. And yeah, so today, thanks to Dharmendra Prabhu and Rohana Mataji, I've had the opportunity to come on to present to you guys. So usually when I go through chapter summaries, I like to go through the verses and pick out key like purports that I just want to elaborate on. But today I thought I'd do it a bit differently. And there's two reasons for that, but we'll see how things go. So yeah, so today we're going through Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 16, which is entitled The Two Doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jai and Vijay, Cursed by the Sages. So just, I guess, as a summary to the whole pastime that we're going through and why we're going through it. I mean, the pastime starts in quite a few chapters. I think it's chapter 12 that we get introduced to the Kumaras, actually. But what I'll go through is just a summary of the previous chapter, chapter 15, which is where we really start to hear how the journey of the Kumaras comes up. So in chapter 15, we hear, first of all, how the sons of Diti, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, how they were creating a big disturbance for the demigods just by being inside the womb of Diti. Right? And because of this disturbance, the demigods approach Brahma, who's the creator of the universe, and they're asking, like, what's happening? What is, like, who's causing this? How is this happening that we are being disturbed just from something in the womb of somebody? And Brahma then starts talking about and narrating about the journey of 4 Kumaras, who are actually Brahma's own sons. The Kumaras were very advanced in mystic yoga, as we learn about, and it's said that they remained in the body of 5-year-olds. Yeah, so they had powers so big, so much that they stayed in a child's body. They stayed in their innocent demeanor, basically. And it's described that they were even naked. That's how innocent and childlike they were. Yeah. But because of this mystic power that they had, because of the mystic yoga, all the siddhis that they were able to venture up past the material atmosphere and start penetrating through the spiritual atmosphere. So they pass through, it's described as 7 gates, 7 entrances to get into the Vaikuntha Lok. So they pass through the first gate, no problems, no issues, no questions, no weird eyes, nothing. Pass through the second, the third, the fourth. Like this, they pass through 6. And nobody's questioned them, nobody's challenged them. And then they come to the 7th entrance. And that's where the 2 doorkeepers, Jay Vijay, they stop them. They're like, you're not allowed entrance. And what do the Kumaras do? They get angry and they curse the 2 doorkeepers. And then we see how the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself comes at this situation, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead basically attracts the Brahmanas, right? Brahmanas previously were very impersonal. Prabhupada in some places has described them as Mayavadis, but in others has also described them as Brahmavadis. So those who actually had a concept of Bhagwan as a supreme, but they were more attracted to the impersonal aspect, to the Brahman aspect. So it's described that just by seeing the Lord, these Kumaras got attracted to the Bhagwan feature of the Lord. And then we see at the end how just after they've cursed the 2 doorkeepers and after the Lord has appeared, the Kumaras just start reciting really nice verses in offering prayers and praise to the Lord, actually. And they ask for 2 things specifically. They ask for an attachment and an attraction towards Bhagwan, towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's where we come to today's chapter. And I'll just do a brief summary, a brief overview of today's chapter as well, before I get into the main sort of theme that I want to talk about. So we start with the previous chapter ended with the Kumaras offering their prayers and praise to the Lord. And in chapter 16, we start with the Lord offering his elaborate prayers and praise to the position of the Brahmanas. And he says specifically that the doorkeepers were rightly punished because they disrespected the Brahmanas. The Lord says how even he himself gets purified by the blessings of the Brahmanas. And like this, the Lord goes through many, many different sort of things to convince the Brahmanas that, what you did was perfectly right. My 2 doorkeepers, they were ignorant, they were foolish. You did the right thing by punishing them. But the 4 Kumaras, they become bewildered by this, I'll call it the fine speech of the Lord. They become bewildered because it's like, hang on a second. You're the Lord and you're praising us, the Brahmanas. And so the Kumaras reject what the Lord is saying, actually. Kumaras basically say, you're giving us this high position, but actually our position is subordinate to you. And like this, the Brahmanas realize their mistakes and they basically beg the Lord, like, please punish us in the way that you deem fit, you deem appropriate to punish us. And then we see that the Lord pacifies the Kumaras and also pacifies Jay Vijay by basically going through, okay, everything that has happened from the Kumaras, you getting your mystic yoga powers, from you coming to Vaikuntha Lok, to the entrance, from you cursing Jay Vijay, all of this was as per my plan. And specifically in the purport, Srila Prabhupada in one of the verses talks about how one of the aspects of the Lord's plan was that the Lord wanted to enjoy a good fight. The Lord can't enjoy a good fight in Vaikuntha because in Vaikuntha, everybody is, the Lord, you're so great, you're so magnanimous. So how can the Lord enjoy a good fight in Vaikuntha? He can't, because all the devotees are engaged in serving the Lord in a very pleasing way. So the Lord, one of the reasons that Prabhupada gives is that the Lord created this pastime so that JVJ, who are very powerful in their own natures, they would come down and fight the Lord. And we'll talk briefly on that at the end. But yeah, and then we see how Brahma ends the chapter by talking about how these two doorkeepers, Jay and Vijay, are the ones who came down in Diti's womb. So it was part of the Lord's plan. So how can Brahma, how can the demigods, how can anybody do anything about it, right? You just have to wait and watch and see the Lord's plan unfold. Yeah. So that's the chapter in a nutshell. And what I want to focus on specifically is verse 14. Yeah. So Canto 3, chapter 16, verse 14. Because I think for me personally, this summarizes what is happening in this whole chapter. Satim vyadhaya shinvanto lagvim guruvarta ghafaram vigayagada gambhiram na viduschakchikirshatam. Translation: the Lord's excellent speech was difficult to comprehend because of its momentous import and its most profound significance. The sages heard it with wide open ears and pondered it as well. But without hearing, they could not understand what he intended to do. Okay. So here we see this verse is just after the Lord has spoken and praised the Brahmana's position. So here we see that the four Kumaras, the four Brahmanas, who were very intelligent, very learned, very excellent in their own speech, as we found at the end of the previous chapter, they are unable to comprehend what the Lord has just said. They're not able to fathom, they're not able to understand anything that the Lord has just spoken. In the Vishnu Puran, it's mentioned that the Lord is full in 6 opulences. Yeah, full of wealth, renunciation, fame, knowledge, strength, and beauty. One of them is knowledge, right? So the Lord is full in knowledge. So it's quite clear, how can anybody surpass or even equate the Lord in his ability to speak? Speech, I mean, we often say, right? One is recognized as wise. I can't remember the exact phrase, but somebody is recognized as being very intelligent until they open their mouth. They can recognize how foolish they are. But here, the Lord is full of knowledge. When the Lord opens his mouth, you know all that's going to come out is the topmost knowledge that comes out. So in this chapter, the Lord gives very nice tattva, very nice philosophical truths. And he uses it specifically to indicate to the Brahmanas that they were wronged by the two doorkeepers. That their punishing the doorkeepers was justified, it was correct. And he says this by starting off by using the word danda, right? Punishment, which was given by the Brahmanas to the doorkeepers. And he describes it as sa evanu matos mabir, which basically means certainly approved by me. So the Lord's saying that I approve 100% the punishment that you have given to the doorkeepers. And he justifies it. He says that the Brahmanas, right, are the highest and the most cherished, most beloved personalities there are. And we even read this, right? For those of us who offer bhoga every day, we recite it every day actually. One of the prayers to the Lord. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitayacha. Right? Go Brahmana Hitayacha. The Lord is the well-wisher or the protector of the cows and the Brahmanas. Yeah. So we recite this daily. So, you know, there's truth behind what the Lord has just said, that the Brahmanas are some of the highest personalities that are cherished. And then he also explains that any wrong act which is committed by a servant is actually a reflection on the bad act or bad character of the master. And we see in the world today also, like if you ignore the term of servant and master, but let's use the words subordinate and seniority, right? When there's somebody subordinate, when they do something wrong, then naturally when people are looking at that wrong action, they attribute it to the senior doing something wrong or guiding them wrongly. prime example is a child and a father, or child and a parent. If there's a child who's showcasing very bad qualities, naturally, people reflect that on the ill upbringing or the ill sort of qualities that the parents have given to the child, whether rightly or wrongly, but that's kind of what we see. And I mean, even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about this idea that whatever a great man does, common men follow. Whatever standards the superiors set out by their example is what standards those who are following put out. So we see that even in the world today, we actually reflect a lot of the behaviors, a lot of the characteristics, a lot of the teachings that the subordinate person has onto the personality of the superior. Okay, they're like this because they got taught like that, whether it's the teachers, the parents, the senior colleagues, or so on, or the managers. So again, what Krishna seems to be saying is very, very true, that the actions of the doorkeepers is a reflection on Krishna himself. So Krishna himself did something wrong. And then he also explains how the Lord himself, like I mentioned, he gets his exalted position as the Lord because he serves his devotees. He's the servant of his devotees. And this is a very sweet little thing that the Lord has said, which is, you know, I think we all can appreciate this. As devotees, we're always attributing this thought, this idea, and trying to cultivate this mentality that whatever has been given to us, whatever we've received, is by the mercy of the Lord. It's by the mercy and the relationship we have with the Lord. And here the Lord is saying that actually I reciprocate the same. My position as the Lord is so great because of the love, the affection of all of you devotees. So that humility, that exchange of humility between the devotee and the Lord is present here. So again, it's a reciprocation that is very sweet. Yeah, and like this, the Lord goes through quite a few different things that talks about Lakshmi Devi and, you know, a few other things. And he's basically saying that, look, Brahmanas, you look Kumaras, right? You're very prestigious, you're high class, you're special, but my ignorant, good-for-nothing doorkeepers offended you. And then he concludes his speech by basically saying, or asking for a benediction from the Kumaras, saying, look, I can't do anything, but you please, I know you've given them this curse to go down to the material world, but please benedict them that they can come back quickly. Shorten their punishment so that they don't stay in the material world for too long, but they come back to me quickly. It showcases a bit of the Bhaktavatsalya aspect of the Lord, where the Lord is very eager to enjoy with his devotees. Yeah. Now, these are quite convincing statements from the Lord to glorify the position of the Brahmanas and to basically chastise his doorkeepers. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, they offended Brahmanas. The Lord is subordinate to the Brahmanas. We have verses that we sing daily where he's saying that, okay, you know, I'm the well-wisher of the Brahmanas. And so many different things, Lakshmi Devi, this, that, and the other. And that, for one, would be very, very convincing. But the Brahmanas can't comprehend this. The Brahmanas, with their intellectual, their analytical mind, are trying to understand and comprehend what is the Lord actually trying to say here. Because what they're thinking, the question that comes to their mind is that you're glorifying us when out of our anger, which is not very Brahminical, we have offended your doorkeepers, who are Vaishnavas. As Brahmanas, we've offended Vaishnavas. And from the scriptures, we understand Vaishnavas' positions are greater than that of a Brahmana. Why? Because there's a verse, Brahma janatiti Brahmana. Yeah, Brahma janatiti Brahmana. Basically, that a Brahmana is one who has realized the Brahman realization of the Lord. Yeah. Whereas the Vaishnava realizes the Bhagavan nature of the Lord. So there's three aspects to the Lord. There's the Brahman feature, which is like the effulgence of the Lord, which is impersonal. Then there's the Paramatma, which is the Lord inside the heart. And then there's the Bhagavan, which is the aspect of the Lord outside the heart, who we can have a relationship with. And it's said, I mean, we can go through analogies, but it's said that the Bhagavan feature is the higher feature of realization. So here, the Brahmanas are basically saying that we as Brahmanas who realistically only realize the Brahman feature, it's only in the previous chapter when we came to Vaikuntha Lok that we've identified this personal form of the Lord as being the sweet topmost thing. But we've offended your dear devotees who are Vaishnavas, who have realized the Bhagwan feature. And so with all their intelligence, with all their knowledge, all their mystic powers, the Kumaras just can't understand this fine speech of the Lord. In the verse that I just recited, 3:16-14, right, the theme that I've picked, it said, "Na vidus tat chikirishatam." Although hearing the words of the Lord, they could not understand the Lord's intentions. And Prabhupada even says in the purport, actually, quote, "Nor could they understand whether the Lord was angry or pleased with them." Unquote. So from this, we can see that no matter how much intelligence we have, no matter how much speculative knowledge we come up with, no matter how much logic and analysis we do, no matter how much scientific advancement we make, we cannot ever comprehend the inconceivable potencies of the Lord. I'm just conscious of time, but the Brahmanas then go through their whole humble attempt at basically rejecting the Lord's speech by saying that, yes, you're calling us Brahmanas as the topmost personality, but actually you as the Lord, you're Brahmanyasya. You're the supreme director of the Brahmanical culture. You're the supreme worshipful deity, not just of the demigods, not just of the people, but also of the Brahmanas. How the Lord is also the protector of religion, right? Protector of dharma. And what is the highest or the topmost dharma? Sarva dharman prityaja mamekam sharanam praja. To abandon all of the varieties of religion and just surrendering onto the Lord. And the doorkeepers fulfilled that because they were in Vaikuntha, they were serving the Lord as the Lord desired. And like this, the Brahmanas then went through their whole thing of how actually, you know what, Lord, you've praised us so much as Brahmanas, but the reality is that it feels like you've praised us out of humility. It feels like you've praised us just to attract us to your intellectual prowess, because actually we're the ones that have offended your devotees. And so then they say, fine, punish us the way you want to punish us. And it's a very interesting thing, because when we look at the fine speech of the Lord, yeah, we can see the Lord, when he speaks in very different ways to different devotees. Yeah. And one contrast that I want to make to this pastime, where the Lord has spoken very high-level philosophy, twisted in one sense, but let's call it incomplete philosophy, right? To attract the hearts of the Brahmanas. We can contrast it to a similar sort of thing that the Lord does in Govardhan Lila. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up, because we've got Govardhan Puja coming up next week. So I was like, you know what? Let's bring up a bit of the fine speech of the Lord in Govardhan Puja. Yeah. So in the Govardhan pastime, for those who don't know, it basically starts off with the Vrajvasis who have set out to worship Indra. Indra is the god of the rains in this specific context. And Krishna basically uses his fine speech there. Yeah. So when Krishna finds out that, okay, all the Vrajvasis, all the residents of Vrindavan, his family members, his friends, they're all setting out to worship Indra, offering him nice, elaborate food, massive artis, all this, that, and the other. He starts giving a nice, fine speech like he did to the Brahmanas. He talks about this concept of karma, how Indra as a demigod, karma also applies to him just as much as it applies to the Vrajvasis, because he's also in the material world, and karma applies to everybody who's in the material world. But more importantly, karma alone determines whether one achieves success or failure in life and whatever they endeavor for. He basically also indicates how the rainfall, which is supposedly meant to be given by Indra, the traditional understanding, which is correct, by the way, is that Indra, who is the lord over the rains, right? When Indra is pleased, then rain will shower. And that's why the Vrajvasis were going to pray to Indra so that Indra continues to shower rain. Because naturally, what do you need rain for? To help with the crops, to help with the vegetation, etc., etc. But Krishna is saying here that also in Govardhan Leela, that actually the rains are destined to fall anyway. He goes through the water cycle about how the clouds affected by the mode of passion are going to rain anyway. I like this. Krishna is basically using his fine speech with the Vrajvasis to establish that the real duty of the Vrajvasis was not to worship Indra. It was to worship their work. It was make their work their worship. And specifically meaning the cows, the Brahmanas, the Govardhan Hill, which was the giver, the provider of all the work and all their crops and everything, all the opulences that the Vrajvasis had. So this is interesting. Again, Krishna is using his fine speech again, this time to remove Indra from the equation of worship. So in the case of the Brahmanas, the four Kumaras, it was to basically attract the hearts of the Brahmanas who were very intellectually oriented, just to make them realize their mistake. And here in Govardhan Leela, Krishna is doing the exact same thing, but to convince the Vrajvasis that, look, you don't need to worship Indra. You just need to worship your work. And yet in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about a verse where it's by the mutual cooperation between the demigods and the people through the means of sacrifice that everyone can live peacefully and prosperous. So it's interesting. On the one side, he's attracting the hearts of the Brahmanas. On the other side, he's trying to philosophically convince the Vrajvasis that you don't need to do any elaborate worship. You just need to focus on your work, worship your work. Okay, two separate trails of thought. And what's even more beautiful here is that when you look at Lord's pastimes in general, when he speaks, the language he uses is tailored towards the devotees in a way that they understand. When he speaks to the gopis, how does he speak? He speaks very lovingly, very affectionately, very teasingly, because that's the relationship they have, which is based on innocence, based on sweet conjugal sort of attraction. When he speaks to the gopas or the cowherd boys, he speaks in a friendly way, speaks as if they're equal. Sometimes he treats his friends as he's the boss. Sometimes he takes on the subordinate role, because that's what happens in friendship, right? Sometimes you're the boss, sometimes your friend's the boss. When he's speaking to the Brahmanas in this case, right, in the chapter of today, he's speaking in a very intellectual way because he understands that an intellectual likes intellectual conversation. But in this Govardhan Leela, the lead up to it, he's speaking intellectual philosophy, tattva, to Vrajvasis. And Vrajvasis, they're not ignorant. They're not just like out of it, right? They have intelligence, but they're not Brahminical. They're not Brahmanas, right? They're Vaishyas because they're cowherd boys, cowherd men and cowherd women. They're very simple, and their focus is just to love Krishna. And as Prabhupada explains in one of the purports, the residents of Vrindavan were simply devoted to Lord Krishna. That was the sum and substance of their existence. They simply loved Krishna, and out of intense affection, they did exactly what he had requested. So even though Krishna gives such an elaborate speech about tattva, about philosophical truths, the Vrajvasis didn't even care a penny for it. They just cared that Krishna said, we should worship Govardhan Hill. Let's go worship Govardhan Hill. They didn't ask anything. They didn't say anything. They didn't go, what are you trying to say, Krishna? They just went, Krishna, you want to worship Govardhan Hill? We'll worship Govardhan Hill. The Vrajvasis' focus was purely on how they can express and enhance their love for Krishna. They didn't care about his philosophy. They didn't care that he possessed all this knowledge, all this wisdom, all this intelligence. All they cared was how can they showcase their love to Krishna. And that's basically what their business was as devotees. There's a nice verse, as I'm sure you've probably heard many, many times from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma dinavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama. Translation: when first-class devotional service develops, then one is devoid of what? Material desires, knowledge of philosophy, actually, knowledge of philosophy, and fruitive activities. A devotee basically constantly serves Krishna in the way Krishna wants. That's their only focus. And Krishna reciprocates with the desires of the devotees that we see. Whatever stage of spiritual life we're at, Krishna reciprocates with us accordingly. If we're still at the stage where we want wealth, the Lord will give us wealth. If we're at the stage where we want siddhis, mystic powers, the Lord will give them to us. If we're at the stage where we want to amass lots and lots of gyan or knowledge, the Lord will give it to us. But when pure love develops for the Lord, when it's fully matured and developed, then it's all about how can we love Krishna. Whatever Krishna says, we follow. Whatever Krishna desires, we do. Whatever Krishna wants, we give. And that's the focus of the pure devotees. So here, the Kumaras were interested in an intellectual understanding of the Lord, and the Lord gave them that. Through his bewildering fine speech, the Lord gave the Kumaras an intellectual way to understand the Lord. That, wow, okay, in chapter 15, the Kumaras got attracted to Krishna as a person, as the person Bhagwan. But that didn't, it was just an attraction. They realized that there's a Bhagwan which is so beautiful. But the fine speech of the Lord enhanced that attraction because, okay, he's also got the intellectual power that we like. But on the other side, at the end of this chapter, just like the Vrajvasis, we see that there's Jay and Vijay who live in the mood of whatever Krishna desires. Whatever the Lord desires is what we will do in loving devotional service. And in this case, what did the Lord desire? That Jay and Vijay leave their post in Vaikuntha and come down to the material world. Just think about that for a moment. What could be more dejecting for us to be in the spiritual world, in a service that the Lord is pleased with us, in a relationship with the Lord where the Lord himself comes every now and then to check up on us, to have a relationship with us, to express his affection, his appreciation for us. And then all of a sudden out of that, you get a curse, you go down to the material world. And not only that, the Lord asks for them or wants them to basically become demoniac in nature so much that it's not that they're just demons who are just, causing mess here and there, but they're demons who are staunch enemies of the Lord, who want to go and kill the Lord. What could be more disheartening than that for somebody who has cultivated a loving relationship with the Lord, where one moment you've got your loving relationship, it's all sweet, it's all nice, and the next moment, complete 180. And if we look at the Bhagavad Gita, on a human level, we can see Arjun kind of went through this as well. It was like, before the war started, he had Bhishma, he had Dronacharya, he had all his friends, family, people that taught him warfare, everything he knew. People that he would have played with as kids. Bhishma, he would have sat on the lap of Bhishma as a child and played with Bhishma as his, great-grandfather. He would have been frivolous and friendly and so many things with half of the friends, half of the people that were on the battlefield on the Kaurava's side. And when he comes to the battlefield, all of a sudden, they're enemies now. Or let's take it a step further. Let's look at our own life. Imagine our family, our friends, and then all of a sudden, because of a curse, we have to completely switch our friendship to enmity. We have to completely switch our nice, friendly, jolly, full family house into a me versus you situation. It'll be so horrifying in one sense. But here we see Jay and Vijay completely took it on. We don't read anywhere about their rebellious mood around this. The only thing we read is how they were morose. Of course we would be. When it's disheartening when you have to leave a loving relationship with somebody. But they accepted it because they saw that this was the desire of the Lord. They didn't try and understand the Lord's plan. They didn't try and go, okay, Lord, you're asking us to go down, but what's the plan? What are we going to do next? How are we going to come back? No, it was like, okay, the Lord desired, so be it. So on the one hand, he uses his fine speech to attract the hearts, the intellectual minds of the Brahmanas. On the other side, like in Govardhan Leela, and even some respect with Jai Vijay, he uses the same fine speech, but just to showcase that a devotee actually doesn't care about, in one sense, doesn't care about the philosophy. A pure devotee just cares about what Krishna desires, what Krishna wants, because their mood is just about developing the sweetness in their relationship with Krishna. And if that sweetness is present, then the focus of the devotee is 100% focused on what the Lord desires wholeheartedly. So, yeah, on the one side, we see this incomplete philosophy attracting the Kumaras' hearts to make them realize their mistakes. And on the other side, you see that same sweet talking by the Lord, the same fine speech that just makes Jai Vijay want to accept their situation because they understood just the one phrase that the Lord said, it's as it's my plan. And that's the glories that we hear of bhakti, actually. So I guess to conclude, so there's a couple of points. So the first thing is that in the chapter, we really see that the Lord presents his intellectual prowess, right, through the way he speaks, through the fine word jugglery, through the fine philosophy that he presents. And he recognizes the intellectual orientation of the Kumaras, and through glorifying the Brahmanas, through that fine speech, using philosophy, the Lord brings the Kumaras to a stage of not just appreciating the Lord's personal qualities, but also to teach the Kumaras of their mistake, of the mistake that they made. The Lord didn't chastise the Kumaras. He used fine speech to glorify the Brahmanas in such a way that the Brahmanas automatically realized that it was their mistake, actually. And then we contrasted this pastime with Govardhan pastime to showcase how the Lord's fine speech in two ways. One is to bring up Govardhan Lila, but the other thing is also to showcase how a pure devotee is just focused on developing the sweetness with the Lord. It doesn't matter what the Lord is giving in terms of tattva. What is more important for a pure devotee is what Krishna's desire is behind the tattva, behind the philosophy that is being given. And then we briefly spoke about the glories of bhakti and how it's showcased nicely in this specific chapter through Jay and Vijay as the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, who accepted the reversal in their life, which was the curse given, but they accepted it as the plan of the Lord. And basically we can say that they saw it as an opportunity to serve the Lord in a different capacity to what they usually used to. And that's basically what a pure devotee sees reversals as. Reversals come in life, not to take us away from Krishna, but to give us a different way to serve the Lord. Salenda, I'm happy for any comments, questions, corrections that the devotees have. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shubhad ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Right, sorry. If you'd like to ask a question, could you please raise your hand and then I'll call you out one at a time, if that's okay. Was there someone wanting to ask a question just then? If I can just start off, Prabhu, and first of all, apologies about the lateness. I was locked out of this account, so we needed to sort it out. So I just realized that Prabhuji said when I was talking, I was on mute. So if I can just ask, were the four Kumaras given two choices though? Because they were given choices to have 7 or more births, or I heard that was the case, and the choice of having fewer births but being against the Lord. Or am I not right in that?
You mean Jay Vijay?
Jay and Vijay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard that, but I don't know the source of it, to be honest. However, having said that, with the purport of Prabhupada's, where the Lord is basically, where Prabhupada says that one of the desires of the Lord was to have a fight, then from that we can basically conclude that it was basically to have the fight that Jay and Vijay came down, because at the end we read about how there's the curse of Lakshmi Devi, right? That's what, so not the curse, but more of, I guess you could call it a curse from Lakshmi Devi, which is why also Jay Vijay come down. But the Lord needed a plan for Jay Vijay to come down, which is where the Kumaras came into the picture. So yeah, I don't know the source of that, but if any of the devotees on the call do know, then it'd be nice.
Okay. Indalika Mataji, if you can unmute and ask your question, please. Indalika Mataji.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for nice class. Yeah, as you are just asking for the source, it's difficult because different commentators, they comment in different ways, like in different angles that we understand the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. So we can, sometimes we can even speculate, but then if we get the right source, it would be nice, right? But here, so why the Kumaras, why did they curse? Because we know in Vaikuntha, there is nothing like anger, nothing like cursing, right? But here, again, we see that it was a wish of the Lord. And also, why did the Lord waited until his doorkeepers were cursed and then he appeared? And the Kumaras, they were very elevated souls, right? Yes, we know they were impersonalists. Now when we saw the future of the Lord and the aroma of the tulsi leaves, they get to their real state, right? And the two doorkeepers also, when the Lord desires something, he needs to find a way. The curses come after. The curses is like Narad Muni wanted to liberate the two sons of Kubera, Nala Kubera and Manigriva. So he wanted to liberate them because they were devotees. Their father was. Then they changed, and then they went back on the platform of being devotees. So when somebody is going downhill, Narad Muni, the Lord sent Narad Muni, sent one of his representatives. Like in this material world, in this earth world, he has sent his representatives as a gurus, as Srila Prabhupada, just to save us. Why? Because we are living entities searching for something. There are millions of like us who don't even bother. Even you tell them, they don't care. But some of us who cares, who are we, why we are here, where we are going after leaving this body, then the Lord sends some representatives, and with his mercy, because without his mercy, nobody will need a devotee, nobody will get association, nobody will get a guru, right? So we see, just like in this material world, when the Lord wants someone to come to him, he takes everything, all his possessions. So Prabhuji, I'm telling you this because I've been through it. I know, right? So it's like this. So then we realize that, yes, what is the use of material benefits when we can get to the lotus feet of the Lord faster? That's what he does. He did it to King Indradumna. He was happy, big king, and then he made him become Gajendra because he wanted him faster to his abode. So this is his way of dealing. We are not able to understand his dealings with every one of us. And so he wanted to have a fight. Yes, maybe he, just like in the pastime of churning the ocean of milk, he wanted something to itch his back. So he became the turtle, and then he had the Manjara mountain on his back, and then he was, they were churning and his back was scratching. That was his pastime. He wanted to have that sensation of being scratched on his back. So he did that pastime. And we don't know what his desires are, what his wishes are. So we have just to fulfill it. Just like we get the examples from Bhagavatam, lots of examples, great devotees, sages, and Narad Muni and all. So we get all these examples. So here we know even his great devotees like Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj was a great devotee. So he sent Bali Maharaj down, I think, to Sutalok. And he's with Bali Maharaj there. He's still there with him as his doorkeeper. So that is his mercy. In the Mahabharata, we see that he wanted again to have a fight, but nobody was suitable to face him. So he picked Bhishmadev. Bhishmadev he loved the Pandavas so much. He could have been on the side of the Pandavas, but then he would not be fighting with the Lord. So he went on the opposite side, and he makes sure that the Lord have lifted a weapon. Even though the Lord said, I'm not going to lift any weapon, I'm not going to fight, I'm just going to sit on the chariot. So Arjuna said, it's okay. But then his motive was to have a fight with Bhishmadev. That's why Bhishmadev was on the other side. But we, not understanding the cause and then the desire of the Lord, we just say, no, Bhishmadev is wrong, he should be on this side. But when Bhishmadev is leaving his body, he desires, and he composed the Vishnu Sahasranam, where he glorified the Lord, and then he talked about it. Also, we know that the Lord, he on the battlefield, he wanted that fight. So we cannot like misjudge anyone, even Jay and Vijay, even the Kumaras, even Bhishmadev, we cannot, because we are not at that level, Prabhuji. So sorry, I just wanted to put this point forward. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bala Prabhu, you messaged me, so would you like to ask your question?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I have a question, Prabhu. Because I have been told by my devotee friend, somewhere in this universe or in the other universe, like Ramayan, Ram Avatar, Krishna Avatar is going on. And sometimes they say after the Krishna Avatar, after those two incarnations, Jaya and Vijaya gone back to Vaikuntha. So how this is possible? Can you please explain this?
So just to make sure I understand the question correctly, is the question more of how did Jay and Vijay basically go back after the pastime of like after the 3 births basically completed.
Yeah. So if they've gone back, and if it's still the Ramayana or Ramayana is still happening in somewhere, they should come back again, isn't it? So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways we can understand this. One is the inconceivable aspect of how time functions. Time doesn't function in the same way in the spiritual realm as it does in the material realm. Yeah. I guess from a material level, if you understand the concept of time dilation just in the material realm itself, if not, then you can like research it. It's just the way time shifts for people from different perspectives.
Yeah.
And the spiritual realm is totally on a different platform when it comes to time dilation. That's one thing. Second thing is that the pastimes that we have in this universe, that we have the stories, the Bhagavatam, etc., are not necessarily the same pastimes that are depicted in other universes. Yeah. So we have the pastime of Jai Vijay for the universe that we are in right now.
Yeah,
But that
okay.
doesn't necessarily translate to Jai Vijay also are in the other universe with that pastime existing there.
Okay.
And third thing, just to full toss on that, it's also said that Jai Vijay desired to come back because they were like, the Lord, when you went down as Ram, when you went down as Krishna, when you went down with all these incarnations in the 3 yugas, you took us with you as your enemies. So when you come down as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why are you not taking us? So just give you a little spin on that one. So also there's a desire of the devotees that sometimes they want to enjoy the pastimes of the Lord. And okay, I don't remember the personalities. I have a feeling I know who they are, but I'm not going to quote it just in case it's wrong. But yeah, there are personalities in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela that are said to be Jai Vijay. So yeah, I'll let you guys think on that and find out the answers. I just don't want to quote it in case it's wrong.
Are they Jagai and Madai? No.
That's what I believe they were, but I can't think of the reference for it. But if, I mean, Indulekha Mataji, if you're conscious of that, then yeah. Okay, even Panchali is saying Jagai Madai. So yeah, it is Jagai Madai basically. Because they're like, hang on, you guys had us in all your incarnations to be your enemies. Why not in Chaitanya Leela, where you're performing the sweetest pastimes of spreading your glorious names? So yeah, so 3 different ways that you can understand that, Balaprabhu.
Okay,
Hope
thank
that
you
helps.
for the explanation. Yeah, that helps.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. If I can just sort of say, I think the other incarnations that Jai and Vijay had, when they went back to Godhead, they actually went into Krishna effulgence, and so they were born in the Chaitanya whilst Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there, so they could get the benediction, I believe, from my understanding, that they could go back to Godhead as their own personalities there. I think that was what I was told when I went on a course anyway. But yeah. Okay. Vijaya Krishna Prabhu, would you like to ask your question, please?
Yes, Dharmendra Prabhu, thank you very much. You're most kind. Baj Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yes, there's some echo in the background, but it's like.
Prabhu, if you can hear me, my question is a general question, because this is my first time here in this group. I got to know about the group through Facebook today. And I just arrived. It is my first time in the group, and I did hear part of the class. And my question, because it is an urgent one, because this is the month of Kartik, is related to Srimati Radharani not being mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam unless it is in a very hidden way. Related to the books we should read, the Bhakti books we should read during the month of Kartik, which is the month of Srimati Radharani, if Srimati Radharani is not mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam as often as required in order for us to glorify her the whole month of Kartik by studying and reciting and reading Srimad Bhagavatam? Is it that we should choose any other literature, for example, from any of the 6 Goswamis, where we would find pastimes related to hearing about who Srimati Radharani is and how she acts as the most perfect servant of the Lord. So in other words, my question is, what kind of literature to read during the month of Srimati Radharani, the month of Kartik, if Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the most important literature for the Vaishnavas, has the personality of Srimati Radharani mentioned in such a hidden way? So this is confusing to me, and that is my question, if I may.
Sure. Just because there was the clarity of your voice wasn't there, so I'm just going to kind of summarize it for everybody else, just in case. So what Prabhu was talking about is how Radharani's name is not really mentioned much in the Bhagavatam. It's mentioned in a very hidden way. And we're in the month of Kartik, which is the month of Radharani. And so the question is, what sort of literature should we focus on? Because if we want to glorify Radharani, then the understanding is that we need to find literatures that glorify Radharani.
Yes, that is my question.
Yeah, that's fine. So nectar devotion is all you need, because in the nectar devotion it is very explicitly mentioned, and those who are on the Gita Life course would know this because I brought this passage up. But in the nectar devotion, there is a very nice passage that glorifies Radharani as the epitome of devotional service. Why do we need to glorify the personality of Radharani when even Prabhupada himself, when he wanted to glorify Radharani, there's a lecture, you can find it, Radhashtami lecture from Prabhupada, which Prabhupada talks 99% of the lecture on Krishna. Glorifies Krishna this, Krishna that, Krishna this, Krishna that. And then at the end he says, and that Krishna is bought by the love of Radharani. All the devotees were thinking, is it Radhashtami or is it Janmashtami? But here is Prabhupada giving us Radharani through Krishna. Because Radharani is such a personality that if we don't properly understand the philosophy, if you don't properly understand Krishna, we will misunderstand Radharani, her position, her love, her respect for Krishna, her devotion to Krishna. Which is why whenever Radharani comes up, my honest glorification of Radharani is go to Nectar Devotion. It's just in chapter 1, I think it's the second or the third section. You can read about Radharani as the epitome of devotional service. And from that, we can understand that glorifying Radharani means following in her footsteps, means performing devotional service. We don't need to look at the personality of Radharani. It's nice, but we don't need that in order to glorify Radharani. All we need to do is follow Radharani's footsteps and serve Krishna in such a way that Krishna becomes pleased by us.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhu, if I may say, thank you very much for the wonderful answer. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. Damresh Prabhu, would you like to ask your question, please?
Hare Krishna. No question really. I just wanted to say, I've heard that Jay Vijay were given the option. Either they have 7 births as devotees or 3 as enemies and come back to the Lord quicker. I've heard in many lectures. Secondly, I told you in the Gita Life course, my background is Ramcharitmanas and I follow. In there's a line. It says, after Jay and Vijay were vanquished, they didn't get mukti. They didn't go back because as per the Brahman shrub, they came back. So they had to take they had to go through the cycle as per the shrub. That's all I just wanted to say. There's a line, Muktana Paye Hate Bhagavana Tini Dhanam Vida Bhajan Pravana. So that may or may not count as proof from scripture. That part. That's all. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. Nishita Bhakti Mataji, would you like to ask
Hare
your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. So, as you mentioned that Jay and Vijay were being cursed as to be demons, so they saw it as a serving opportunity in a different way. So, how can we cultivate such kind of attitude that even if we get such transformation of services, we develop the same kind of serving attitude?
How can we see reversals as a way to serve the Lord in a different capacity? I wish I had the answer to that. I still struggle with reversals myself. But I guess a few thoughts that do come to mind is understanding that the Lord is our best friend and our ever well-wisher. A best friend, like if you imagine just your relationship with your own best friend, right? Spouse, best friend, whoever it happens to be. You'll have a very loving, intimate relationship when everything is going really, really well. But when you do something wrong, they'll be one of the first people to chastise you, tell you, Nishta Bhakti, you're doing this wrong. And it pinches, right? It's a pinch. It's like, how are you saying that to me? Like, I thought we were best friends and you're chastising me. So why can the Lord, as our best friend, who's seated right next to us in the heart, not do the same thing? When we go through reversals, we have to see that the Lord is giving us a pinch. And it's for us to then see that pinch as a, Lord, you're so horrible. Why did you pinch me? Or you could see it as, you're pinching me. What is it that you actually want me to do? Yeah. And there's also another aspect that I thought that came to mind. There's 3 types of intelligence that we usually describe. There's intelligence by hearing. So we hear something, maybe from the scriptures, we read something from scripture and it's like, okay, we take it on board. We see, right? Second class is we see. Okay, we've read it in the scriptures, we haven't taken it on board, but we see somebody else going through that situation. And then we're like, okay, I don't want that to happen to me. So we learn from that. But the third type of intelligence is one who learns by experience. One who hears or reads in the scriptures, who sees other people going through something, but they still don't learn and they have to go through it themselves in order to learn. So when a reversal comes to us, we can also reflect on that. What are the signs that Krishna has given us where we've read it or heard it somewhere, but we didn't take it on board? Where we've seen it in practical life in other people's lives, but again, we haven't taken it on board. And therefore, at the end of the day, we need to learn the lesson. So if it's not through hearing, if it's not through seeing, then it'll be through us experiencing. So when we can comprehend the reversal in an appreciation that the Lord is helping us along our journey, then that might help us come to terms with the fact that the Lord is teaching us something, which is a way for us to change the way we're serving, not necessarily going away from him. But yeah, if anybody has any personal realizations on this, then that'll be nice to hear.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. I think Indulekha Mataji is the last person that's got their hand up. I think if there's anyone else, please raise your hands. But Indulekha Mataji, would you like to ask a question?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji, talking about the reversal, you know, we should also think that when the Lord is he's not putting us, it's ourselves we are putting us through all these ordeals in life. It's also our karma. So if, for example, Prabhupada has given examples in his scriptures, in his translation. He says that one of his devotees had his finger cut off. And he went to Srila Prabhupada and he said, he was chopping the vegetable and he cut his finger. Srila Prabhupada said, you should be lucky. You should say thank you because your whole hand was meant to be chopped off. So in this way, we should take that lesson. Yes, I remember myself falling flat on the road without any rain, without anything happening. And then I just stood up and I folded my hand and thank you, Krishna. I could have broken my leg. So in this way, my karma is diminishing, but Krishna is minimizing it. Right? So we should take it like that. Yes, I am going through difficulty in my life. It does not mean that I should go away from Krishna. I should take more shelter of Krishna and realize that it's my karma, but Krishna is minimizing it. So this is for the reversal. And then the Prabhuji asked why Radharani is not mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is not my realization. I have heard it from senior devotees in classes that because Sukadeva Goswami, he was a personal parat of Radharani. And if, I don't know why you're laughing, maybe I'm wrong. So
I know where you're going with this.
if he would mention the name of his mistress, he would just go in trance. And then he would stop narrating the Bhagavatam. And since Parikshit had only 7 days to live, so he would not hear the Bhagavatam and we would not get to hear the Bhagavatam. That's what I heard, Prabhuji. I don't know how far I am telling the truth. Hare Krishna.
That's also the rasa tattva behind Radharani not being mentioned. So yeah, the sweet reason why Radharani is not mentioned. But yeah, there's lots of reasons really. But yeah, that's very intimate with Sukadeva Goswami.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Rona Mataji, would you like to come in?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for that wonderful class and for staying on later. If everyone would like to unmute themselves so we can do 3 Haribols.
Haribo! Haribo! Haribo!
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Jamana Prabhu, for hosting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
I just want to apologize once again for starting late. It was due to technical issues. So thank you for your patience and understanding. So next Tuesday, we're going to continue reading from Canto 3, chapter 18, the battle between Lord Boar and the demon Hiranyakasha.
What time?
8 p.m.
It's the same time.
8 p.m. What part of the world?
UK.
UK time?
It's UK.
Yes, because I am in Portugal.
It'll be about an hour difference, I suspect, Prabhuji.
Now, yes, in Azores Archipelago, it is an hour less than in UK, yes. And Dharmendra Prabhu, if I may, I just joined the group ISKCON London Official. Is it that this group is the same as Learning Bhagavatam?
Correct, it is, yeah. You can actually, if you just message me, I'll put my phone number there. If you just message me, I'll respond. We just want to wrap up with these announcements, if that's okay.
Yes, of course, Prabhu. I'll message you.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, and then next Thursday, we'll be joined by our guest speaker, Dinabandhu Prabhuji. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Hope you all have a wonderful week.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
The same to you. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vancha kalpatarubhascha
Kripa sindhu eva cha patita pavana
Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, everybody.